Welcome, everybody, to the Digital Asset Investing Show. I am super pumped to bring you the first episode. We're going to have a lot of fun here. And the way we're going to start it off is I'm going to give you an overview of how digital asset investing works. Now, myself personally, I come from the world of finance, but I also have had over the past couple of years a couple successful businesses online. I built one seven-figure business, actually multiple seven-figure businesses. I currently have a portfolio of companies as well that I'm managing. And what I see as one of the biggest opportunities in online businesses in finance currently is digital asset investing. And that's why I'm super pumped to be here, not only with you, but also just to teach you everything that I have been privileged to learn. So with that being said, I'm gonna go straight into it, and I'm just gonna jump into some of the content. And the way I'm going to structure these hangouts slash podcasts is I know that most podcasts that people do, it's usually different interviews. It's usually just commentary. But my philosophy is always to give the best content possible. And that's what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to teach everyone on here who's going to be listening in to these different podcasts and hangouts, the exact step-by-step of how to make everything happen when it comes to digital asset investing, including different case studies of investments that I'm considering, different case studies from additional investors that we're also going to be interviewing on the show. So we are going to have interviews, but I'm going to make them very, very, if I could say, maybe even difficult for the speakers that are going to come on, just to make sure that every single person that is dialing in has the step-by-step and is empowered to take action with what we learn, because I don't want to just do passive learning. But what I do want to do is passive investing. So I'm going to tell you right now the types of deals that I'm looking at. And the whole purpose of this entire podcast, what we're going to be focusing on is buying and selling businesses, and exactly what I'm doing with my portfolio of companies, different acquisitions that I'm looking at, that I'm considering, why I'm considering them, and my investment process. So you can learn exactly what I'm working on. So what are you going to learn? Well, the deals that we're looking at right now within DigiStrats, along with other investors that are within my network, they have the potential to create a passive income stream of 30 to 50% investing in digital assets. And that's why I'm super excited about this opportunity, because these returns, especially if you look at some of the more passive income plays that are the content AdSense plays, they're very sizable and they're very, very respectable, especially when you look at the market out there, and then you look at other different types of investing opportunities. If you look at stocks, if you look at bonds, if you look at real estate. And the thing is, even for myself, before I got into the world of digital asset investing, I didn't know that there was anything else out there. I just didn't know. And so how did I actually come into this world and start learning these lessons? And it's kind of a funny but a pretty interesting story, is that I go to this entrepreneurship retreat once a year, at least over the past 2 years. And this year I had a conversation with a guy that's, I consider him to be a friend and a mentor. And he was talking about a $4 million business acquisition, which is around the e-commerce space, that he was doing. He was in the process of doing it. It was generating over $100,000 a month in profits. And he was getting in at under 3 times earnings, right? So it was doing around $1.5 million a year in pure profits. And at $4 million, well, that's less than 3 times, because 3 times those earnings would be $4.5 million. And it just absolutely, I would say, blew my mind, because I didn't know that there were these opportunities to do these acquisitions with digital assets. Now, I come from the world of finance, so I'm very familiar with buying and selling businesses. But back when I was in finance, we would work with huge teams and do acquisitions that weren't in the $1 million range. They weren't in the $2 million range. They definitely weren't in the $100,000 range. They were in the $100 million range. Maybe minimum 20, 30, 40, $50 million range. Sometimes even hundreds of millions of dollars, closer to $1 billion acquisition. So it was completely different, and it's hard for someone, even kind of like myself. You're making a corporate income and you don't necessarily have any share of that upside. How do you get actually involved? And so when I found this world of digital asset investing, I was extremely excited. I jumped right into it and started combining my internet experiences along with my finance experiences in order to start creating, acquiring, buying and selling these different businesses, especially when I currently already have a portfolio of company, which was acquired under slightly different model, more of the venture model. But that is the exact purpose of this podcast and hangout show that I'm going to be bringing to you. So let's get right into it, because today I want to give you an introduction of the entire role, so that if you listen later on to this hangout slash podcast show from the beginning, you can just get your feet wet with how the entire industry works. And the first lesson, and it's important to go right into this, the first lesson that I want to drive home is that when I talk about digital asset investing, I'm not talking about getting another job. And I have these investment opportunities that come across my desk every single day. I look at different prospectuses and I start thinking about, okay, this is a great opportunity, right? This is a niche that I like. It's a software business, SaaS business that I'm very familiar with. And then I realized that the owner structured it in a way where if I get into this, even though the financials are so lucrative and I'll be making a lot of money, I'm acquiring another job. And so I want to drive this home, because this is one of the first things that I realized is I don't want to be acquiring another job. One of my purposes, other than that I love what I do. I love getting into deals. I love looking at them, analyzing them, even building models. That's one of the things maybe we'll get into one day. But it's to free up more of my time so I can do what I enjoy. And I don't want to get another job operating a business. So the deals that I primarily consider are the ones that are more passive, even if it's, let's say, a 25% ROI. And that's pretty low of an ROI. There are a lot of deals that I'm looking at, even in the 40-50% range ROI, and they're still pretty passive plays. But I would rather get that than get maybe even double the ROI, but where I would have to devote 40 hours or 20 hours a week operating that company. So I really want to drive that home, because it's something that I realized early on. And the broker, anyone that's brokering any type of deal, they're of course salesmen. And I've noticed, because I've talked to a lot of them, some of them are really quality guys. And we might get into it, an overview of different brokerage firms, and I'm gonna have an interview, probably brokers as well. And of course, the ones that I bring on the show, I'm gonna bring you the top quality guys that if you're looking for a broker, whether to buy a business or sell a business, that you have someone that you can rely on. Now, Of course, you can always rely on me, as within DigiStrats, we do also broker deals, but I want to give you the options. I want to have that transparency. That is a core value of this show. So what I want to say, and including myself, I mean, you could tell how passionate I am. If you can imagine me getting on a call with a potential buyer of a business and I'm representing the seller, of course, I'm going to get them a little excited, right? I'm going to push their emotional buttons. Now, the best investors, if you're acquiring a business, are never emotional. They take a step back and make logical assessments. Now, sometimes it's very difficult, right? You find that dream deal and it's the fear of loss that sets in. Okay, this deal is gonna get away. It's gonna run away and I don't know what I'm gonna do. And when that happens, you have to have mechanisms in order to take a step back. For example, I have a whole range of people, whether it's a guy I know who's an ex Goldman Sachs venture capital guy, a guy within this industry that is also a broker, but he's also a friend of mine. A guy that I know that does a lot of Amazon e-commerce deals. If that's a deal that I'm considering, I have a Rolodex of these people that before I execute anything, I'm going to get their opinion because my judgment might be clouded, and I need to get this feedback. So always realize that and make sure that you have the proper due diligence and consultations in order to make sure that this deal is fitting your criteria and you're not being pushed around. So my focus when I'm developing my investment criteria is passive investing, not manual or hands-on, but passive. That is for me one of the most important things, and the reason is because, like I said, I mean, I don't want to acquire another job. And these deals are rare. So when I'm searching for these deals, I have to be very, very careful not to get overly excited about something that's amazing. It's in an amazing niche, but it's going to give me another job. And I have to be very strict with my criteria. So what is my lifestyle? And the only reason I bring this up is because getting into this world, number one, of just internet entrepreneurship, and number two, acquiring, restructuring, and then exiting out of businesses. These types of businesses and cash flow generating strategies or techniques, whatever you want to call them, I've been very lucky that it's provided me with the opportunity to live all across the world in 6 different countries, from London to South America to Asia to continental Europe as well. I've lived all over the place, and it's thanks to being able to structure this lifestyle. So when you're thinking about the different decisions that you have to make, there might also be a certain business and certain deal that comes across your desk. And once again, you have to learn to control your emotions, because you might get really excited about it, and then you realize that you just bought a business that is going to require you to have a job and go into an actual office. Maybe you buy an offline business and you got to manage it because you thought it was going to be more hands-off than it is. So definitely always focus on that lifestyle piece, because it's also important when you're considering. It's always great to look at the financials and look at the ROI and the numbers, but there are other considerations that are essential as well. So let's talk about how the journey begins and what my goal is for you. My goal, everything that I'm going to tell you on these podcasts, on these hangouts, I'm going to try to make it as actionable as possible. So, and with probably this first show being a little bit of an exception because I want to give people a holistic overview of how the entire digital asset private equity world works. So we're going to be talking about proven passive income models. We're going to be talking about, we're going to be breaking it down into step-by-step systems. And what I want to do is somewhat of a show, probably around 5 modules, where over the next couple of shows, before I start bringing on experts, I'm going to take you through and teach you all of the basics of digital asset private equity, so you understand how the world works, and then we could start interviewing specific brokers and specific investors, going into different case studies as well, whether it's from deals that I'm looking at or from deals that hosts that people that I bring onto the show are looking at. So action oriented as well. Unlike other podcasts and hangouts where people just chat and it's more of an informational and overview type of thing, I want people to actually take lessons and implement them into their lives, into their businesses. And these might not be about buying and selling businesses, but it might be about how to operate your business, because I have extensive experience as well operating different companies. So with that being said, now this is what I put within my different courses, but I want to also put it out here, because you're not paying me. This podcast is free, but I still want you to commit. If you're going to be getting on this, that you take the things that you learn, whether it's, like I said, operational, or something about, I recommend you go talk to a broker, or you interview a couple brokers, you try to source a couple opportunities, and you implement it. Because if not, then you're just passively listening, and I'm not going to be able to take you further with this podcast. So that's my goal and my strategy. Now, let's talk about the different modules and where we're going to be going over during the next couple of weeks. Number one, why digital assets? Number two, the different business models. There are different types of business models. If you look at e-commerce, SaaS, AdSense, content businesses, membership sites, and each one is specific. It's just like a restaurant is slightly different from a construction business, right? They're both offline businesses, but they are different, and you have to understand the different dynamics so that you can make the choice on what fits you, what's a good fit for you. Maybe you're an e-commerce guy, I'm not, but if you are, then those are the perfect businesses for you. So then you develop your investment criteria, and then I'm going to talk about different potential, kind of cool, just an overview of the different opportunities that are out there, that some people are taking advantage of and some people aren't, and how I execute my investments and what my basically timeline and plan is when I do that. So how does the do-it-yourself process work? And how do you actually get involved? Let's say today you decided I want to buy a business. I decided, for example, I'm looking at this deal right now that we're going to potentially do an acquisition, and I'm going to show you what are these steps that we're looking through. So before I ever got into this world, what did I have to do? I had to learn. I had to understand, because I have, let's say, I don't even know how many years, but a lot of years, just even in this world of online businesses, for over 4 years of experience of learning how to operate and run online businesses, and then all of my finance experience before that. So combined, that's a lot of learning. Now, you might not have that background, but the first thing, before I'm going to go into anything, I'm going to learn and I'm going to understand the space. So same thing when it comes to just this micro world of digital asset private equity investing compared to the whole entire world of billion-dollar deals and other private equity types of deals. We're just keeping it, let's say, to the sub $10 million deals right now. So learning about it and the different dynamics and how specific it is. For example, you don't usually buy businesses in this world, but you buy assets. Okay, what's AdSense, SEO, all of these things that are required to know and understand before you can even start looking at opportunities. So I had years of that learning. It could be condensed into a few weeks, but it is important to be knowledgeable before any decisions are made. So the second thing that I then ended up doing is researching deals. And what I do is every Friday, once a week, basically, I set aside a couple hours and I have approximately 15 to 20 deal sources that I review. And I review all the deals within that source that I can look at, I can understand, I can analyze, and then I can ask sometimes for more information. I see what they sent me, what they didn't, what they have maybe on their websites, ask for more information, and I start gathering all these prospectuses of potential acquisition targets that I can then later on execute upon. After that, so sometimes there'll be nothing, right? Sometimes there'll be nothing, but usually I'll stumble upon maybe one thing that really catches my eye, and I start sharing it with people around me, start getting some feedback, and start creating a short list of the top opportunities that I have, especially, for example, right now I'm in acquisition mode. So I'm ready to deploy some capital for myself. So I have a short list of a couple acquisitions that I'm looking at. And you just never know, right? You never want to be in the mindset that you have to do something. You always have to be willing to walk away, especially if you're buying a business. But you want to have that short list. But it's crazy, especially this world. It's a very crazy world. For example, on my short list, one of the deals fell through, $1 million deal. The reason, because I thought that we had a consortium of investors, and then suddenly a couple guys pulled out. So then we didn't end up having the capital that everyone wanted to commit to that entire deal. Another deal we were looking at was around the $500,000 range, and the seller, just kind of disappears and decides not to sell. So there's all these types of deals, and it's a very, I would say, volatile world, and things can change, and you have to be ready for that, because if you kind of get married with one deal, then it's going to be really bad. Now, once I start choosing and I say, okay, this is probably the deal that I want to do, this is the deal that I want to get into, you do some preliminary due diligence. So I got on, for example, over the past week, off of my short list, I got on 3 due diligence calls where I had an hour-long call with the owner, and I studied the website, studied the one of them was a SaaS deal, so I studied pretty much everything. The 2 other ones were content AdSense plays, so we marked up the sites, did some preliminary due diligence, and I started grilling the owners in order to get more information and understand, okay, is this going to be also an owner that I can work with post-acquisition? What do I think about everything? And just getting more information. And then after that, it's time to submit an offer. And for example, right now I'm at that stage for one of these deals. And what I'm doing is that I can as well now move forward with one of those deals. I don't want to submit multiple offers, but at this point, I want to have it narrowed down to just one deal. So right now we're gonna submit an email offer, which is kind of basically an indication of where we're at. And then it's going to turn into a letter of intent, which is signed. And once you submit that letter of intent, you're starting to pretty much commit that, hey, I'm going to go through with this deal, and it's actually binding. It's a binding offer. If the due diligence goes through and is satisfactory, the deal terms might still change a little bit, but they're not going to drastically change. So then you invest in due diligence. For example, there are companies out there with this acquisition that we're looking at. It's a content AdSense play. We're going to be hiring experts, and we're probably going to spend maybe around $5,000, at least a couple thousand, at least I would say $2,000 to $3,000 in hiring experts, getting their opinions, really figuring out turning every single little stone of that business, making sure that there are no surprises when doing that acquisition. And then after that, it's going to be time for us to negotiate and really just come up with the final offer, draft an asset purchase agreement, and negotiate at every little point, sign, close, send off that money, and you have your new asset, at which point it's time to restructure. So now is where all the fun begins, and that's where the post-acquisition is. You have a plan. What I always tell people, and I do that for myself, is I always have a plan for what I'm gonna do immediately after. If I don't, I can't go through with a project because it's just not going to happen. So actually adding those operational improvements for the next 12 months and getting that team in place, making sure that it's still pretty passive for the new owner, preparing to sell it again, increasing profits and revenues, implementing all the systems. And 12 to 18 months out, it could be time to exit and actually sell that business again, right? Let's say, for example, this one deal we're looking at, it's around $30,000 in profits. Well, we're going to try to improve that and hopefully get that to around $45,000, $50,000 a month in profits. And that way, when we exit the deal, we're also going to get a higher valuation, and people are going to be willing to pay more for that deal. And that's the method. So that's what you want to learn, and you want to understand how that entire process works. Now, let's talk about the potential of these different deals. And I'm hoping I'm getting you excited. Like I said, today is one of the probably only days that we're going to keep it this vague. But then we're going to start getting into things. I'm going to show you different reports. I'm going to talk about very, very concrete numbers. But the thing is, why did I get into this? What potential did I see? Why did I decide to drop other things and focus literally strictly on digital asset investing? Well, number one, diversification. And I know that I can be invested in things like stocks, bonds, and say make money from one of my other businesses, and then just pour all that money into stocks, bonds. But what happened in 07 and 08? What happened to the stock market? What happened to real estate? Everything went down. And any type of business that was publicly listed was affected. Maybe 1% of businesses weren't. And the thing is, these assets, if you have an AdSense site, even if the crisis happens, people are still gonna care about clothes. They might not have as big of a budget to buy clothes, but if it's an AdSense site, they're still gonna be clicking around. Other sites aren't as effective, and it diversifies your portfolio. That's why I really like it. The returns are absolutely amazing. This is without leverage, potentially 30 to 100% returns. My goal is around that 100% mark. I want to at least double my money over the next 12 months. That's extremely important for me. And also, it's strategic. So I have a couple businesses, and this is why I look at also SaaS deals. Even though SaaS deals can be a nightmare and can be a headache, I have a couple businesses, and I want to also potentially acquire something that I can immediately resell. So let's say I have, a database of 30, 40,000 people. If I can immediately sell that program or that subscription to them, why not? Why not make that happen? And let's say, I acquire something for $500,000, and immediately within the next 2 to 3 months, it generates $150,000 just because of this strategic fit. Well, that is a huge ROI for me. So what's the current state of the market? Well, the current state of the market is that, number one, 53% of all businesses sold are e-commerce transactions. So e-commerce is still the biggest slice of that pie. Now, the average multiple, and this is why I'm getting so excited and why I'm getting into this, is 2.06. Average multiple based on data from BizBuySell that businesses are being sold for in this asset class, in the digital asset market, which is absolutely ridiculous, right? Just off of that, I'm going to be getting just under a 50% return, even if I don't improve the business, if I just hold it for passive income, assuming that it's managed and I don't have to do too much. That's already a 50% ROI. That's absolutely crazy. Now, some of the more quality ones you might see between 2.5 and 3, but when you look at other businesses that are much more expensive, and you look at transactions that happen that you read about in the Wall Street Journal, those are being exited at around 5, 6, 7, 8 times EBITDA. So there's a lot of good deals to be snatched up here, and I'm not even talking about real estate where the yields are much, much lower. And $83.6 million, that was the total transaction volume based on BizBuySell. Now, what does that mean? Well, a lot of people think that's big. But when you start looking at something, along the lines of, and I want to show basically some type of example, if I can. If you start looking at things on DealBook. DealBook is it's basically a publication by the New York Times, and it shows different transactions, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, and these are huge transactions. So digital assets, those are also transactions, right? But these are just much bigger transactions. For example, let's look at the Pfizer deal, right? An equity value of $152 billion. The merger is the largest since the heady days of 2000. That's a huge one. Now, what about Warburg Pincus? They raised a $12 billion fund. Well, in this digital asset world, the biggest fund that I've heard of was $5 million. And I think there are some maybe that are closer to 10, but still, that is how much? How much? That's 1,000 times as big. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So the cool thing, why does this excite me, right? Another $1.8 billion bid for something. Why does this excite me? Well, it's extremely exciting because that $83.6 million, one deal in the world of finance is bigger than that entire market. Now, how many online businesses are there? There is millions in different countries, all over the world. This market is in its infancy, and that's why I'm excited, because I want to get in. And I want to start potentially later on funds, things of that nature, getting in on these acquisitions while there is still this opportunity to take advantage of it. And that's why I'm just super pumped about everything. And lastly, I want to, and there's a 19% increase in SaaS software businesses. Those are hot because they have an underlying asset that's very powerful. And 75% of buyers are first-time buyers. That means they're not sophisticated or strategic buyers, unlike those other deals that I showed you where they are, and that's why they're also willing to pay higher multiples. Now, when this happens, when this shift happens away from these first-time buyers to more strategic acquisitions, to more investment acquisitions, those multiples are going to go up, deal flow is going to go up, and it's just going to absolutely explode. The other thing why I'm excited is I just received this email last week about SBA loans that you can potentially finance these acquisitions up to 85%, and actually that's not true, up to 90% finance. Taking out an SBA loan, and we'll get deeper into this into future podcasts / hangouts. 75% of the loan financed by an SBA loan, and 15% seller financing, meaning you can acquire. And I'm looking at some of these deals. I can acquire something that will potentially generate me $40,000 a month, and I'm going to be paying $10,000, $12,000 in monthly payments. So I have $20,000 left after that, with maybe 100, 150K down. Absolutely crazy, and that's just starting. And once that kicks off, that's also going to absolutely change the dynamic of this market, which is just so exciting because it shows the potential that's going to happen and how this industry is going to rapidly change. Types of business models. So, we have to be careful because these statistics aren't always accurate. There's limited information. There are these deals that 83 million, but there's also a lot of off-market private deals that happen that probably push that up maybe to $500 million or $300 million in deals. So there's a lot of deals that happen outside of that. But that data is based on a lot of these brokers, these top brokers, and they completed about 182 transactions in 2014. 53% were e-commerce, 28% SaaS and apps, 9% service businesses. Service is something I'm not looking at all, because once again, I mean, that's 100% a job. And unless I have a whole team and they're handling everything on their own. 8% are advertising, content, AdSense sites, and 2% are lead gen sites. So there's all these different types of business models. And where I want to leave it off is that the cool thing is everyone needs to figure out, and that's what I was trying to figure out, what type of plays do I want to do? Where are my strong points? Is it e-commerce? It's not. Is it more software? Yes. And is it advertising, content, AdSense? Yes. And those are my sweet spots, and that's why I'm focusing on those types of deals. But there's something out there pretty much that matches everyone's criteria, and everyone's criteria is different depending on their strengths and weaknesses. Now, with that being said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap this up. I think this is a good note to leave this show off on, and I wanna basically I wanna drive it home about how massive this entire opportunity is, because it's absolutely huge, and it's absolutely for what I consider for myself a gold mine that I'm going to be pursuing. And in the next show, we're going to start diving deeper into some of these modules. I'm going to show you more concrete things. Number one, with going into these business models, so that we can all figure out what is our deal criteria and what are the pros, what are the cons, what are the risks of advertising, content, AdSense deals versus e-commerce, where Amazon can shut you down. On the advertising side, Google AdSense can shut you down. But when I'm looking at these returns, for example, the deal that I'm currently involved in, that I'm estimating is going to be over 100% ROI, return on investment, over these next 12 months, it's just absolutely exciting. So the way I want to leave it off is I want to say thank you for listening. I really appreciate you tuning in to the show.